And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, on Antigua Shipyard, and that is a canceled larva, and we're going to see a 6-pool out of our red Zerg player here in the upper right-hand corner of the map. It is SlayerS Mia. This could be a quick game, folks. And down here in the bottom left-hand corner, we have from Team MVP, their new Protoss player, blue Protoss player, Vampire.
What did that larva do to deserve such a short...
I don't know. Makes such a pitiful noise, too.
Yeah.
It's crying. Oh, no, I'm dead.
Well, at least he can cry while he's dead. That's a feat that
that's
many
right.
people cannot achieve.
Yeah. Zergman.
This is a 6-pool. You're right. There's just not a lot to say other than maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
And this is a very quick pylon scout for Vampire. Absolutely necessary. If he had waited on this even a little bit, he'd be dead or close to it.
So what's he going to do when he does scout it?
Okay, so he will probably still start his forge up at the front, and then he'll have to put a pylon back here, drop a photon cannon inside of his mineral line,
and win the game?
And hope. Well, no, I mean, then after that, he'll probably follow it up with a big, you know, like a 3-gateway push or something like that, or a 3-gateway expand. This is me extrapolating way into the future, though.
Attack the cocoon.
Yeah.
Prevent those lings from ever being born.
Yes. So
yeah, that's not going to work.
There's the forge I was talking about, building it pretty far back as well and making sure that it can only be attacked by a few sides so it does get finished, and that'll allow him to put there it is, the pylon and the photon cannon inside of his main.
All right, we'll see if Mia sends drones along for the ride. Sometimes you see they'll actually keep maybe 2 mining but send the rest, and maybe sometimes build, or not, sorry, not build a spine crawler, but build more Zerglings back at home and just keep things going as long as they possibly can. But this could be tough for Mia, especially since Vampire got such an early scout. There is that cannon. It's not in the center of the mineral line, though, which I feel is kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, it will reach all the way to the bottom of the mineral line, but then what this does is it reaches the back of the gas geyser here as well, and this gateway he's putting down, so he can actually concentrate all his building efforts in this area, and he only needs 1 photon cannon.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I like that, but it's going to just make it a little bit more difficult to mine as they keep fanning out, but that only for a few seconds. Once the cannon actually finishes, it only takes 2 shots to kill a Ling, so they are not going to be able to come in and do any more damage. This forge and pylon, of course, are basically forfeit at the front, so Mia is still going to get some damage done. He realizes very quickly that he can't continue this as an all-in, so he's actually building a queen now, overlord, more drones as he gets the larva to do so. So basically this is just a stunted growth game rather than a just very, very fast game. That's right. So, but now, I mean, because Protoss players are pretty good about holding that off now and making sure they don't take too much damage. So Mia's going to have to think on his feet. Looks like he was planning on expanding here in a second. I'm not really sure what his follow-up is going to be. That's more of the question mark to me than what the Protoss player is going to do. I mean, obviously we're going to see some sort of a warp gate push here followed up by an expansion after 3 gates or something like that. But Mia, what are you going to do? Expansion coming out now, of course, but is this going to be strong 2-base play, or is he going to continue expanding? Really just depends on what he scouts out of Vampire. He's still got those Lings on the move. He's going to be able to know immediately if he tries to move out of his base or anything like that. He can actually just keep them running in and being annoying as long as he just doesn't go into that mineral line. He can continue to scout and obviously prevent a Nexus from going down until Vampire has enough units to allow that to happen. And he's just continuing to poke back and forth and make sure he tries to take down this Zealot here. Hasn't lost a Zergling quite yet, but a few of them are getting pretty low. Stalker coming out now, and that'll help defend for a while. There's 3 gates for Vampire, and everything is going according to plan. Although, the cannon's not far enough to defend the outside of these gateways. That's true. He may be able to force a cancel out of here. There is only 1 Stalker and 1 Zealot. Actually, the Stalker is going to be enough to drive Mia out of town. I'm actually surprised that he's leaving entirely instead of leaving maybe a Ling or 2 behind the mineral line. Probably going to be taking over that Xel'Naga tower in the middle once more, and his hatch is about to finish, so we can see a little bit more what he's going to be headed towards for the mid-game now that his 6-pool has not just all-out killed MVP Vampire. All right, well, Vampire with 3 gates will have a powerful push here in a bit if he wants to. He'll be able to make another round of units as well as he expands. There we have it. So 3-gate expansion coming out of him. And so far, Mia has not pulled entirely off of gas, leaving 1 on there. So we could see a quick 2-base Roach. We could see a Baneling play as well, or he could sit back and just make sure that he has enough for defensive Roaches while he takes a 3rd. Yeah, and basically all of these options are still open to everyone. They're just trying to figure out, while their opponents are being passive, what can they do while they do have some breathing room. Essentially, they can do whatever they want for the moment. Vampire obviously has not moved out of his base to do any scouting in a while after losing that probe not too long ago, but Mia is actually doing a decent job at spreading out a little bit. Obviously has Xel'Naga Tower under control, has that Overlord behind Vampire's Natural, so he can send it in and take a look at things anytime he needs to, and I'm actually going to be a little bit surprised if Mia doesn't just take a third hatch with how passive Vampire's being at the moment.
All right, so I saw a red dot moving over there, but it's just an Overlord for the time being. Second gas already coming up, though, and that's pretty interesting. Has he fully invested back into the first one? Yes, he has. So this is quite a bit of gas income for 2 bases. There's a double evolution chamber, and pretty much all of his resources have been expended. No shadow up for a third base, though.
Interesting. All right, so 2 base double Evo chamber build hasn't really built a whole lot of fighting units yet. There are some lings out there. Of course, he could go +1 melee, +1 armor, and get banelings started cranking out, or he could change gears a little bit and get the +1 range and start working toward roach upgrades. But there is that melee upgrade. I'm surprised he hasn't actually built a baneling yet, baneling nest yet. He is actually going to get that armor upgrade as well. And Stalker's checking around for any spare lings or overlords that might be scouting him out. That robotics facility is going to be finished in just a moment, and he's rolling upgrades of his own as well.
4 gas in total for Mia now, and he will be able to go into a strong mutiling baneling play if he wants to. I mean, since he already has these carapace and weapons upgrades coming up, he will have very, very strong banelings and zerglings here in a bit, and a few missed force fields there. And Vampire, unfortunately, doesn't lock down that many zerglings, and it's well worth 3 zerglings to bait out 3 force fields.
That's true. Sentry energy obviously is going to be incredibly valuable. The thing is, though, and Mia just doesn't have that many units. Vampire has a lot of fighting units. Mia doesn't have too many. If Mia actually, or excuse me, if Vampire just keeps all of his units together and slowly moves across the field like that, he'll be able to take out a couple lings here, a couple lings there, and by the time he gets to Mia's base, there's really not a whole lot defending there. He still hasn't even taken that third base, and it looks like Vampire himself is thinking about doing that for his own self.
And important to note, too, he hasn't actually walled this off right through here, so in the event of a ling run by, that's actually quite dangerous unless he takes care of that. So hopefully that doesn't come back to bite him. Zealot sitting over at the third base now, or the potential third base location, and this drone's not going to be able to get on through, so that Zealot has certainly paid for itself, killing that 50 mineral drone and ensuring that this base doesn't go up for another 30 or 40 seconds.
Yep, time delay is well worth it. He's going to be able to hack down a ling or 2 as well, and the Zealot, yeah, he paid for himself pretty well there. There is an observer floating around now for Vampire. He's going to get a look at everything now that the Overseer's out, though. He sees that Spire on the way. He's going to hide and pretend he's an Overlord. Nothing to see here but us Overlords.
And this Overseer's just shaking his finger at him.
He's like, I see you. I know you're an observer.
This is an interesting play as well. We see an infestation pit coming up right away. This is a heavy gas investment. In any case, whether he decides to just rush for Tier 3 tech and Greater Spire, or if he heavily commits to either of these Tier 2 tech choices, still going to be quite the gas expenditure.
I'm actually still amazed that Vampire's been ahead in supply since the 6 pool. Like, he just has not slept at all. I mean, obviously, Mia took a long time to actually get that third base up, but not ever slipping in supply, man. He's staying on top of these weapons. His army is growing steadily. He's making 2 probes basically at all times. Yep, 2 more just started now. Blink and +2 weapons are both going to be done here soon. And he's got a formidable army for Mia to have to deal with only lings so far in this game.
Well, Zealot's going to get caught out in the middle here, but it does have +1 weapons. Oh, wait, no, +1 carapace is done, so it still takes 3 hits in order to kill a Zergling, so that Zealot not going to be as effective as he would like. And that's the real advantage of continuing with these upgrades, as we can see from Mia. Being a little bit careless with his Zerglings, unfortunately, but he is doing a nice job of pinning his opponent back on his side of the map while he invests into his infestors. And
this will be interesting to see if this Nexus actually needs to be canceled or just killed by Mia. Actually, that's huge for the amount of lings that are used to do that. He's going to lose all of them, but actually canceling that Nexus, yeah, 400 minerals is a ton, and I'm actually a little bit surprised he sent that follow-up, man, with that many units there from Vampire. That's kind of a scary thought to have to just run in more lings.
Would have even arguably been worth it for just the cancel and the 40 seconds lost on the actual construction of the Nexus itself. So getting the full kill, that's just devastating for Vampire. But Vampire does have strong Templar tech coming out, or rather I should say the Templar are done. He's turning them into Archons, and that's the route he's going to choose with them. So strong army composition coming out, but no real Robotech to fall back on at the moment.
Yep, +2 weapons already done as well, so these Archons are going to shred through these lings. Those are the only units that Vampire's seen so far, but of course we know that Infestors are starting to hit the field now. Archons do pretty well against those Infestors as well. Melting them down, so you can see that them just shredding already through these speedlings, and the supply is still slightly favoring Vampire, even though they're both on 3 bases now. Actually, Mia's been on 3 bases a little bit longer, as Vampire did get stalled out there.
Yeah, I mean, I know Zerglings are susceptible to any kind of AoE, but especially the Protoss AoE, whether it's Colossi, Archons, or Storm, they're the absolute hard counter to Zerglings. So, not surprising we're seeing those out there. Now there's 13 Roaches coming up for me as he makes a bit of a switch. So, huge Roach Infestor play coming out of him.
Yeah, he's making a total switch here to Infestor Roach. He's already got pathogen glands. He's already got Roach speed started and +1 weapons started. So Burrow actually could come into play as well. We have seen a couple of observers flying around from Vampire, so not a huge deal there. Only 6 supply difference. Mia finally taking the supply lead, I think, for the first time in this game. 15 minutes in, 16 minutes in.
All right, well, Lings are going to run on by here, and there is an Archon up to help defend, but they're just going to take the long way around and start attacking the gateways. Could catch an Immortal out in the open as well, which would be a very nice catch. That's 350 resources that would be gone. The Immortal, he survives.
Wow, just barely, though. And, I mean, a lot of Lings did die in that process, but it did allow him to establish some control over the Zelnaga Tower. He has the high ground now for his Infestors, so he can be able to launch those Fungals a lot sooner onto these Blink Stalkers, which is very nice, of course, because it lets him score those kills a little bit easier. Force Field's going down, segmenting off a couple of Roaches. Not a huge deal there, but just a nice little friendly trade as these armies continue to posture and position themselves. 11 more Roaches in production now from Mia, though. He's not going to build any more drones this game, I have a feeling.
Oh, and he has just locked down so much, and unfortunately, there's a fair bit of the army that's actually away now for Vampire. However, he still has a very strong unit composition. The Archons are proving to be worth their weight in gold against all the biological units that are sitting on the ground, and even these infested Terrans are dying pretty quickly. So Vampire is going to be able to chase this away with most of his very powerful units intact. He lost 1 Archon, and that's about it. But his opponent is producing like mad.
Yeah, those Archons and Zealots were really driving the action. I'm surprised that Vampire isn't a little bit higher supply. That was a nice trade, but Mia, like I said, I don't think he's going to build any more drones. He's using every larva he's got to remax right now in Lings, Roaches, and 4 more Infestors. Those Fungals to kick things off are really good, so if he has more Infestors to do Fungals like that, he's going to have a pretty good time here against these Blink Stalkers.
Well, more energy being used in the form of infested Terrans, not really doing much in the way of locking down more units with Fungal, and the power units are starting to gather now for Vampires. He has 3 Immortals out there. There's one that almost died right away, now has 17 kills. More Archons are being added on, and of course, Colossi production has started.
Yep, and actually Vampire is about to take a 4th base ahead of Mia. Nexus is about halfway done. At that center base, Mia's still looking for a potential spot for his own 4th base. Probe is transferring now, but all these Infestors and Roaches, that's a pretty scary little ground army that we've got here. Not a ton of energy on the Infestors, but enough for a handful of Fungals to stop these Blink Stalkers from getting away or stop these Zealots from actually hacking down. Actually, no, the basketballs, the infested swarm eggs, actually stopping all the Zealots from even getting in place, and that's a ton of DPS right there.
That was a fantastic play right in the middle from Mia there as he locked down these with Fungal and actually focused down the Immortals with the infested Terrans, which proved to be so effective against Immortals. They can rip through hardened shields very, very quickly, and that was just such a good engagement. It's exactly what Mia needed. He was slowly starting to win the war of attrition, even though he was down a base because he was winning the engagements a bit more effectively, but that one was just fantastic.
Oh, here we go. 2 fronts, actually. Now the Roaches are going to sneak in on the left side of this Colossus and try to focus it down quickly. The Infestors doing their job by fungaling and, you know, shooting out all these infested swarm eggs. They're going to be able to take out the last of these Stalkers. Their DPS is quite high, and they do benefit from that range upgrade that we already saw earlier from Mia. So the more roaches that survive this fight, the better. Obviously, the infested Terrans are going to die off over time, so if he can keep these roaches alive, he can keep this push going.
Yeah, I mean, but now he's up by 70 supply. He's taking control of the middle of the map. He's not taking any pressure himself, and he's doing nothing but reproducing units, and that equals one successful Zerg. You know, this has just been such a weird game to me, though, because Vampire did a great job of holding off the 6 pool. He had a great response in the mid-game. He was able to put on pressure, and now just nothing really working for him at the moment. He has a good unit composition, but maybe it wasn't the best macro. I'm not really sure, but he's just fallen behind as he's gone along.
He just never got off his side of the map. He never was able to put on enough pressure. Every time he moved out, Lings would come and distract him, and he'd say, "Oh, I don't really have enough to keep going on here," and he would just back off. And he never even got close to the natural this entire game with anything. No drops, no aggression on the sides, trying to keep this death ball coherent, and it's just not worked out for him as Mia has had a lot of time to build back up. He's got a ton of infestors. Fungal is still basically the best spell in the game, not only locking down units, but doing a ton of damage to those Immortals and Archons and Zealots, of course. Keeping the Zealots off of the front lines is keeping the Roaches alive a lot longer. Look at all these infestors. He's going to be able to shoot so many infested swarm eggs, and you can actually use those for positioning as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's surrounding the army. Now, the Colossi do have a pretty good position here on the high ground. He's got to back this hurt Colossus up just a little bit, but it looks like he's a little more concerned with warping in units for the time being. And a lot of units have fallen, but he's retained all of his Colossi for now, and it's just down to infestors that don't have any energy left.
I do see 7 Corruptors in the production tab, though, to be able to deal with these Colossi. Obviously, the Infestors and Roaches weren't quite working out, but this number of Corruptors will certainly work out. There is some anti-air, obviously, in the form of the Archons and any Blinkstalkers that he chooses to morph back in, but Corruptors are so beefy, and they take out those massive units so quickly, especially with Corruption, that it shouldn't matter. I think 7 to 10 Corruptors would just be a fine number. Obviously, Greater Spire on the way now, and he can start morphing in Broodlords after the Colossi are dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, Vampire, even though he's done a good job of defending the last couple of Pokins from Mia, is still in a really, really tough position. He's backed by 70 supply. He has strong units out, but not enough of them. And just the sheer amount of forces that our Zerg player has on the map now, especially with this air-to-air Corruptor force that'll deal with Colossi so quickly, it's going to be very difficult for Vampire. And it's the absolute perfect engagement right here. The Corruptors just making their way in, dropping down Corruption spell on all of the Colossi. One falls right away, a second going down after that. The infested Terrans haven't even popped yet, and all the Colossi have been dealt with.
That's right. Corruption, of course, getting spread immediately. All the Corruptors doing tons of damage, and now infested Swarm Eggs, that replaceable army, actually just doing a ton of DPS to this Nexus, not allowing it to actually finish safely. It might get taken out. No, probably not, but Mia obviously has sunk a lot of damage into it already. These Roaches that are a lot more permanent will be able to come in and do some damage. The Corruptors are falling back now. The Greater Spire is done. He can start morphing Broodlords as soon as he gets the cash for it, but focusing on this Roach army now. Vampire's not even going to let this come to a close. He just loses that 4th base again, and GG's.
That's GG. Yeah, he's down by 113 supply there, so a good time to give it up, and Mia's actually stretched this